All right, welcome back to Morning Mix. Summer break is mainly a time for children to relax. However, for parents who are going through or have been through a child custody battle, it can be a difficult time for everyone involved. Family law attorney Ben Stevens joins us this morning with some pointers on how to co-parent during the summer break. Mr. Stevens, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you?
All right. Appreciate you joining us. It's tough for the kids. It's tough for the parents. But you've got some great tips to discuss here for co-parenting. Let's touch on communication between parents for one.
Well, communication is really the key. So, obviously, depending upon the age of the child, there's a lot of different levels of communication need to take place with younger children than, older children and teenagers. But the key is if the parents can communicate and keep the focus on the child, children can greatly benefit from having two different homes, two different sets of activities. And I say that from a couple different perspectives. I've been doing this for 25 years, but I've also been divorced a couple times, happily married now, but I have children with my exes. And I've been through, summer visitation positives and negatives with, personally as opposed to professionally too. And the cases where, the parents can talk ahead of time and agree, yes, we want for little Johnny or little Susie to go to camp this summer. Here's how we're going to pay for it. Well, that's supposed to be my week. Well, okay, let's just switch the weeks around so that the child can go to camp. Those are cases where you have happy children and, happy-esque parents and because they've kept the focus on the child. The bad situations are where the parents do not talk and they each run off and make a bunch of plans for the kids for the summer without talking to the other. And then at the last minute, well, I'm sending them to this camp this week. Well, I've paid to send them, to go on vacation the same week. What do we do? And that's when we get the phone calls and, we have to jump in and try to resolve things that they could have resolved themselves easily if they could talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so this kind of touches on a little bit of what you're talking about. What if there's a custody agreement in place? Is it a good idea if there is some of that leeway?
Absolutely. So the best custody, the custody agreements that work the best are fall into one or two categories. Either ones that are very clear. So, and my practice, unfortunately, I guess for me, I deal with a lot of high conflict cases. So the ones where the parents literally cannot agree if it's raining outside or if it's sunny. I mean, they'll argue over anything. But the two situations are whether either there's a very structured, specific schedule. Mom has the children these weeks, dad has the children those weeks, whether it's an alternating week schedule or some other type of schedule. But then there's no dispute. Everybody knows ahead of time going into summer when the child's going to be with them and when they're going to be with the ex. The other type of schedule is sort of on the other end of the spectrum where the parties just agree, we'll work it out. And that either works really well or it doesn't. But I can tell you when it works really well, it works extremely well for the children because, again, typically the parents that will agree to that type of setup are the ones that get it and realize it's about the children, it's not about themselves, and the children's activities and priorities are at the forefront, and that just makes life better for everybody. And I love seeing those, and again, I've had the benefit of some of that personally, but, I love seeing that in cases where the parents are not at each other and they could both go to baseball games and the children see their parents there and that. I mean, those are that's the way it should be.
That's probably one of the number one reasons right there to figure out how you can co-parent on this. Ben, where can you go to get some more information on this?
So there are lots of resources online. I published a family law blog that's been around, I think, since 2008, but it's got a lot of articles about parenting, summer visitation, lots of practical tips. The easiest way to find it is to go to scfamilylaw.com, SouthCarolinaFamilyLaw.com, and then it'll link to my webpage, and then the blog is there. There are other ways to find it. That's just the most direct route to it.
All right, scfamilylaw.com. Family law attorney Ben Stevens, thanks for joining us this morning and giving these pointers here about co-parenting this summer.
Great. Hope you guys have a good week.
Thanks very much. You too.
Yep.
Very good information. I've never been divorced, but I am the wife's second husband. But, you know, we get along fine with the ex. And, you know, when the kids were small, we were able to go back and forth, spend the summer with them. You know, it's a good thing to learn how to be able to co-parent simply for the child's benefit.
There you go. And he mentioned a lot of good tips, but I think the biggest is just kind of putting your child first and not your needs. So just think about the child, and I think everything will work out.
Absolutely.